All right, hello and welcome to the video. My name is Wade Daniel Smith, and um, a long time ago now, when I was 20 years old, I was a first Q in Ishinryu Karate and Jiu-Jitsu. I was a black belt candidate, and the only reason I didn't get a black belt is I had to quit for personal and family reasons at that time, and never got to train again after that. But I was actually able to beat multiple black belts, double teaming me in full contact sparring during the black belt training and testing, because the last thing my sensei was working on me before the black belt test was because I was at the time planning on joining the Marine Corps. He was literally training me to, quote, defeat two Navy SEALs in a handicap match, is what he was training me for at that point. And I could defeat two second degree black belts attacking me simultaneously at that time. So, um, what this video is about is a common self-defense scenario. Is there's more than one attacker attacking you. It's a gang rapist. So let's say if you're a woman, or once one you get in a fight with the man and then his girlfriend joins in and starts pulling your hair and kicking you in the nuts or whatever. So how do you defeat multiple attackers in a real life or death street fight? Um, it also depends on how badly the fight has escalated, because you don't actually want to use life or death techniques until they're actually practical and needed. So I'm not justifying murdering anybody by any means, but if you do need to maim or even kill somebody in self-defense, there is a time and place for that, which the Second Amendment of our Constitution allows you to even draw a weapon and shoot the sucker. But so, if you have to beat them to death with your bare hands to get them off of you, you're allowed to do that. The Second Amendment exists partly because of that right. But like, you might think it's impossible to beat 3 or 4 attackers, especially if they're all men, but it's actually not. Once you learn a few strategies and techniques for fighting, you can defeat the first person in 1 or 2 hits like that by the time you're a brown or black belt, especially if they're really an unskilled attacker and not themselves a martial artist. Like, if I defined unskilled as white belt or weaker of a fighter, you know what I'm saying? That's what I mean by unskilled. But you can beat 3 or 4 of them attacking you. A common first person attack, I said, if you know you're already in a life or death situation, it's a gang rape, one or more of them has drawn knives or something at you, and you're fixing to have to defend yourself with life or death techniques, then the first one that approaches you, you go ahead and close distance and throat jab. If they're drawing weapons against you, or if they're ganging up 3 and 4 of them on you, go ahead and be proactive and defend yourself. And if a judge or jury asks you, I feared for my life and I defended myself. That's the answer. All right. But the first person to get them out of the way instantly, pow, throat jab them with either a regular boxing style horizontal twist punch into the larynx, or you can use an open handed web hand strike and hit with this bone right across here at the base of your index finger. And either way, it'll crush their larynx, and you've defeated one opponent in one strike. And at that point, you can grab them by the wrist or the next person and just kick that person out of the way. And the next person, you might get in a wrist lock or kick them in the groin so hard that it doubles them over. And then you kick them again in the jaw or face. And for example, the formula for how strong a practiced expert front thrust kick can be, let's just say a heavyweight boxer, the strongest heavyweight boxers can throw roughly a 1,500-pound punch. But a 200-pound man, which I'm supposed to weigh 185, but I'm a little overweight right now. But let's say a 185-pound man, the formula is going to be 2,000 pounds plus 4 times your body weight is what your thrust kick should be. So using round numbers, mine is supposed to be 2,800 pounds, or nearly double the force of Mike Tyson's right cross or right uppercut. So if you've doubled them over with a groin kick one time and their face is now waist to solar plexus height, kick that person in the face as hard as you can and go ahead and break their jaw or crush their skull or whatever you can with that kick. And then grab that person and put a wrist lock on them and keep their body between you and the third and fourth attacker. So we're going to use this first or second attacker as a human shield between ourselves and the other attackers, because we've already finished off the first attacker completely. The second attacker is damn near maimed because we've crushed his skull and kicked him in the nuts with a 2,800-pound kick. All right. And so now we have him in a wrist lock, holding his body between us and the other attackers. If he's still resisting, you can still deliver kicks to his abdomen and kidneys until he either gives up or dies or whatever the case. But at any rate, keep his body between you and the third and fourth attacker. All right. And if the third and fourth attacker try to flank you and get around, you can deliver kicks to the sides of their knees and break their knee. You can kick them in the groin or abdomen or whatever. But mainly, you just want to keep the second person that's already nearly maimed between you and the other two healthy attackers until either help arrives to help you out of the situation or until you gradually defeat all four of them. And that's your strategy. You keep the first or second attacker between yourself and the additional attackers. And so you use their body as a human shield to keep the other ones from being able to flank you. And a good 185 pounder that's been doing 200 to 300 push-ups per day as part of their training and also works on their basics correctly and then does bag work for an hour a day should have about a 185 pound man, not like Mike Tyson 225 or whatever. 185 pound middleweight like Sean Strickland should have a 1,000 pound right cross punch. A true heavyweight, 225 pounds or above, should have about a 1,500 pound right cross punch. So if you hit somebody bare knuckle with a 1,000 pound punch in the face, it's going to break bones in their face. It's just a fact of life. That's why in boxing they wear 16-ounce gloves, and even in MMA they have to wear 4-ounce gloves. Because if you've ever seen bare knuckle boxing, most of the fights are over in about 20 to 30 seconds. Because once you land one good punch on somebody's nose or cheek or jaw, that's the end of the fight when it's really a professional strength bare knuckle punch. So that is the technique for winning an outmatched life or death street self-defense situation. And, to actually pull it off, you have to practice this stuff hundreds and hundreds of hours in the dojo with the other brown and black belt level fighters and purple belt level fighters. You might have a purple belt good enough to practice this with, or you might have to wait until they're second or third degree brown belt. But anyway, I had about 4,000 Isshinryu karate training hours directly under two different Isshinryu senseis. And then on top of that's striking and grappling and jiu-jitsu and judo all together. And then on top of that, I had 200 seminar hours under Arsenio J. Advincula, who was then a 7th degree black belt in Isshinryu karate and in Kobudo. And he was already a 10th degree black belt in eskrima stick fighting at the time. So I had 200 seminar hours under him, which you learn like an entire belt rank worth of knowledge every seminar under him for 50-hour seminars. And back then it only costed $100 for a 50-hour seminar. And like I said elsewhere, it'd be worth paying $300, $400, maybe even $500 for a 50-hour seminar now to be trained by that man. He's still alive, by the way. And then I had another 100 seminar hours under two 6th degree Isshinryu black belts. One of them had a secondary style of I want to say Tai Chi Quan, which and Wing Chun also, but Tai Chi Quan was the second style, and then the other one was a 6th degree Isshinryu black belt with a 6th degree black belt in Hindi Kung Fu simultaneously, and I had 50 seminar hours under him. So, and that's my karate training along with judo and standing jiu-jitsu training. And then for ground game, I've trained in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu dojos for about 1.5 years altogether. Although I never got promoted in the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu dojos because I was already considered a brown belt level grappler. And it takes a couple years to go from brown belt to black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu if you're really being taught anything new. You don't just walk in there and master that stuff in one try, even if you already have thousands of hours of karate experience. So I never actually got promoted even in 1.5 years in the Gracie dojo. But they didn't want to mess with me standing up because they knew I could beat them standing up, especially if striking was allowed in sparring. When they saw how hard I could hit a bag, even in a jiu-jitsu dojo, they didn't want anything to do with me in striking practice. They wouldn't spar me at all because I'd pretty much waste them. But I was 50-50 with the 2nd and 3rd degree black belts and tapping one another out in the Gracie dojos. So that was another 1.5 years training. So altogether, I think I'm up to a 7.5 years total martial arts training. And I will say, You cannot beat 2 or 3 or 4 unskilled attackers by using only Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It is strictly for one-on-one fighting. You're not going to out-grapple 2 or 3 or 4 people trying to punch and kick you. They might have a pipe or a metal pipe or a beer bottle or something and club you in the head while you're wrestling with the first person. You don't want to be in a wrestling contest without good striking. If you do have to use grappling, it should be wrist locks or side arm control is what you should focus on. Maybe a heel hook if that's the only thing you can get. But a standing heel hook, not on the ground. Don't go to the ground no matter what if you're outmatched or you're going to get killed, literally. But if you practice and if you do 200 to 300 push-ups per day, 2 sets of 50 and then 10 sets of 20 is what I used to do altogether on push-ups, and do a couple hundred jump squats every day, your punches and kicks will be so powerful because I can still kick a 225-pound standing water bag so hard that I can send it airborne 10 feet across a room, and that's with it fully filled with water. So imagine what happens if I kick a human being that hard. They're going to have internal damage to their organs if I hit them in the body. I can get that kick all the way up to chin level, but I've never thrown it in a fight or sparring that high because you lose about 90% of your power by going that high as opposed to kicking to belt knot or solar plexus level. For every degree you go above belt knot level, you lose about 1% of your kicking power. So punches and elbows and palm heels and whatnot are for face attacks and head attacks. Kicks are generally should not go any higher than the solar plexus unless you're absurdly flexible like Philip Rhee or something like that and can actually get away with it, or Jean-Claude Van Damme. Those are ridiculously superhuman exceptions. I wouldn't go trying to knock somebody out with a kick. I had a similar discussion one time with a Muay Thai world champion in his division and weight class, and he had 30 some odd total knockouts, wins, and he was the world champion in his league. And he said only one of his knockouts came from a head kick, and all of his other knockouts came from punches and elbow strikes. So that tells you what the ratio should be of head kicks. You should hardly ever throw a head kick unless they're like already doubled over and it's easy to hit them in the head. Then you can head kick, like I described earlier. Whenever you groin kick somebody, then you follow it up with a head kick when they've been down holding themselves, and then you just crush their skull. Is how hard you ought to be able to kick somebody in that situation. So anyway, that's how to win an outmatched fight, whether it's 2-on-1, 3-on-1, 4-on-1. As long as they don't have a gun, you can beat them. Even if they pull pocket knives or daggers or something, I can take a pocket knife away. I used to disarm the brown belts and all the way up to second-degree black belts. Sensei would give them an eskrima stick or an Okinawan bow or a tuifa or a wooden dagger or whatever, a baseball bat, and tell them to try to hit me. And my job was to disarm them. And they had been trained by Kobudo Grandmaster Arsenio Advincula in how to use all those weapons. So they weren't dimwits with weapons. And I was being tested and trained for black belt, and I had to disarm them and take the weapon away from them without getting hit. So yes, you can learn to disarm a stick, a pipe, a baseball bat, or even a knife from an opponent without getting stabbed. And you can prove that by having a dry erase marker instead of the wooden dagger. And if they touch you with the dry erase marker, it stains your hand or your clothes. And so just practice and make sure you never get touched by the dry erase marker, and then the blade never touched it. And you can prove that you can do it. But anyway, it does take hundreds and even thousands of hours drilling and practicing all of this, especially full contact sparring and also drilling under the supervision of at least a 3rd or 4th degree black belt instructor. And they need to be a real 3rd or 4th degree black belt. They can't be a paper black belt that got their black belt off a cereal box or something. Because like in my case, I was trained by ex-Marines who used to train the Marine Corps combat when they taught the old close combat system and the first version of the martial arts program. In fact, A.J. Advincula helped found the existing martial arts program and is credited with several of the martial arts contributions, as well as the advanced close combat using the rifle as a melee weapon. He modified that and improved that for both the bayonet fighting and the butt plate fighting of using let's say you ran out of ammo or misfired or something, and for whatever reason you need to club your opponent or stab your opponent with a bayonet or whatever. He improved that fighting style for them. And those are the two people who trained me. So Advincula got an honorary black belt from the Marine Corps, and he won a Medal of Valor in the Marine Corps. So he's not a paper black belt. He's the real deal. All right. So anyway, that's the end of my video for now. So yes, outmatched street self-defense situations are in fact winnable, especially if you're brown or black belt. You ought to be able to win a 1-on-3 or even 1-on-4 against unskilled attackers, assuming none of them are any better than white belt. I mean, if one of them has some martial arts training, or two of them do, it's going to be a lot harder to win that. But I define unskilled as being white belt or weaker for the purpose of this scenario. All right, because criminals are usually stupid. They don't sit around game planning every conceivable scenario of martial arts to attack you. They think they're going to overwhelm you by brute force or numbers or whatever. They don't realize that a skilled person can beat them anyway. All right, thank you for watching, and that's the end of the video, and I hope somebody learned something and enjoys this. And if you have any requests, go ahead and make those in the comments section on the video.